Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. The Hill, Trump CIA chief, Hillary Clinton will face, it says could face indictment, but the John Brennan indictment that's upcoming, the GOP criminal referral, makes that a virtual certainty that Clinton and others will face indictment, in addition to already of James Comey, Letitia James, and John Bolton. The list is going to be over 20 to 30 people or more. Hit subscribe to this channel, to my super chat. Can't do this without you, ladies and gentlemen. Your super chat support is greatly appreciated. Let's get started. Go to H.A. Goodman. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel, by the way, after this segment. It's below in the description, and it'll be below in the pinned comment. And ladies and gentlemen, to read my writing in The Hill, the Huffington Post, Salon, the Federalist, other publications, go to hagoodman.com. Declassified appendix to Durham report is exactly why Clinton and others will face indictments even before the conspiracy statutes. There are grand juries now, according to numerous sources. John Radcliffe alluded to that, for conspiracy statutes. Hit subscribe. Let's get started.
CIA Director John Lee Ratcliffe worked on this in Congress and again as DNI and joins us now. Welcome, Director. I sat beside you as Comey and Brennan were questioned for hours about Russia collusion. They never once mentioned this was a Clinton campaign plan. They knew it. They were co-conspirators. Would this ever have come out had you not declassified Brennan's notes and then Durham's annex? And for our viewers, what's new in the Durham annex?
Well, Trey, think about that there was intelligence from foreign intelligence services that one U.S. presidential candidate was trying to frame another candidate for treason, claiming that he was an agent of a foreign power, an agent of Russia. And that intelligence was never shared with you or I as members of congressional oversight committees on intelligence. But for the good fortune of me being able to find John Brennan's notes and declassify that secret may have been hidden forever. But I was able to provide that to John Durham, and you see some of that in his annex that was declassified this week. And so what you learned in this annex that many people didn't know before was details of that Hillary Clinton plan and how it included groups like the Soros Foundation and the role that the FBI played. So before all of this started, Trey, what we did know was this, that on July 31st of 2016, the FBI did something as shocking as it was unprecedented. They opened a criminal investigation into a nominee for president, a candidate for President Donald Trump, something that had never been done before. But what you learned in John Brennan's annex this week was 6 days before that, Russian intelligence predicted that's exactly what would happen, that there was a Hillary Clinton plan and that the FBI would pour oil on the fire of a firestorm that would consume the country for the next 3 years.
So the Clinton campaign, the DNC devised, conjured up, fabricated all of the Trump-Russia nonsense. They filtered a dossier through the United States government with the help of Brennan, Comey, and others. The dossier was full of lies. Imagine if somebody's stumbling upon this and says, oh my God, this is total nonsense. Imagine if Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani purchased a dossier that said that Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and President Obama and Bill Clinton and George W. Bush were in a Moscow hotel room experiencing a certain type of activity. That's the equivalent. The media would say this is complete nonsense. Trump purchased his own investigation. But because it happened to President Trump, they're not saying that. They're saying it's BuzzFeed published it. They were trying to verify the dossier, numerous publications. It was hilarious, but also diabolical. Let's continue. Everyone involved in the dossier, the purchasing, the creation of it, committed a criminal act. That is a fact. Okay, let's continue. And if the rebuttal is, well, no, it wasn't. There were never trials with declassified intelligence like we have with Tulsi Gabbard and John Radcliffe. So that's the response to any rebuttal.
So think about that, Trey. Either the Russians made the greatest prediction or the luckiest guess of all time, or this intelligence was real. And of course, the answer is this intelligence was real. And how do we know that? Well, subsequently, under penalty of perjury, while under oath, Hillary Clinton's own campaign manager confirmed that there was such a plan and that Hillary approved it. So that, I think, in addition to what you learn about the FBI's role that came out this week, was that this intelligence that was so shocking that John Brennan brought together the National Security Council, President Obama, Vice President Biden, Clapper, Comey, Susan Rice, and briefed them on this intelligence about a Hillary Clinton plan to frame Donald Trump, and that the CIA made the required referral of that to the FBI to investigate that as a counterintelligence matter. And as John Durham found, the FBI buried it. They didn't open a file. They didn't assign an analyst. They didn't investigate it all. They just spent the next few years, really, amplifying the lie of Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier and burying the truth of her plan to frame Donald Trump. It is the greatest political scandal that we hopefully will be the last that we'll see in our lifetime.
Rabbit Burn, thank you so very, very much for the super chat. To my super chat, thank you. Greatly, greatly appreciated. When John Ratcliffe says this will be the last of this type of scandal in our lifetime, he means a lot of people will get indicted. By the way, Hillary Clinton will almost certainly run for president, even indicted, convicted. It don't matter. She's running every 4 years. Or she wants to run. But let's continue.
Speaking of amplify, Director, I want you to amplify a point that you just made, because you and I both know John Brennan, the New York Times, they're still in denial. They're claiming that none of this has been verified.
Well, they have to, Trey. They have to, because to do otherwise would be to confess their guilt. My critics in this regard, Brennan and Comey and Clapper, they said I was wrong about there was no Russia collusion. They said I was wrong that Hunter Biden's laptop was real. Of course I was right. I was telling the truth. Our intelligence reflected that, and the same is true here. This intelligence is real. And for Comey and Brennan and Clapper to say otherwise would be to confess their guilt, to say that they gave false testimony, that they misled Congress, that they obstructed justice. So they have to put up these straw man arguments saying, well, we stand by our assessment that Russia meddled in the 2016. Well, that wasn't their argument. Their argument was that this was unprecedented, that Donald Trump was potentially committing treason, that he was an agent of a foreign power.
Their argument was that Russia and Trump were in cahoots, that Trump worked with Russia, or that he colluded with Russia. They use broad, ambiguous statements: collusion, interference, meddling. It's like they turned into like a Scooby-Doo episode. You meddling Republicans, meddling. And so what does meddling mean? What does collusion mean? What is interference? These are broad, ambiguous, all-encompassing terms, so they can circumvent criminal liability. But they lied, and they set up and framed an innocent man. Donald Trump was an innocent man. There was never any intelligence from the CIA or FBI or anyone that said that Trump was working with Russia. Hillary Clinton and the DNC purchased, with Bernie Sanders' money after they cheated him, a dossier, which was a compilation, a bunch of papers that were full of lies, so much so that Michael Cohen was suing BuzzFeed. And then they set up Trump, and millions of very intelligent people believed it, which is completely absurd because you'd have to be an imbecile to believe it.
Have to take that point, and to the point of the New York Times and the Washington Post, the same thing. They don't want to admit that they wrote thousands of false stories, so they don't want to give back the Pulitzer Prizes that they gained for writing those false stories. So they're doing it to do anything other than to try and fight this and say that it's not real would be to admit their guilt, to admit they were wrong, and to admit that they deliberately misled the American people, which is exactly what they did.
Yeah, they also might want to read Hillary Clinton's campaign manager's sworn testimony, because he admits what you just said. They deny it, but we'll see what they say when they get under oath. Is there more to come from either you or FBI Director Patel? Are there more shoes to drop that we should be looking for?
Yeah, there are, Trey. So, people need to understand that, there is no Russia collusion hoax file cabinet at the FBI or at the CIA. We have to look for these documents, sometimes that are well hidden. You have to go trace through emails and look for signs and clues that would point you to. That's how I found John Brennan's notes, and that's how we found additional documents. I've talked with FBI Director Patel. He and I will be declassifying additional documents that show just how sinister the FBI was in amplifying Hillary Clinton's Steele dossier as real and credible to be included in the intelligence community assessment, but also in how they buried the counterintelligence referral memo that I mentioned before. How they went to great lengths to try and keep that out of the intelligence community assessment. So there will be more to come, and I think that people should expect that the Trump administration will continue to shed transparency and light and truth, again, because, Trey, there is no question, this was the greatest political scandal of our lifetime. No one wants to see this happen again. It derailed our country. It derailed President Trump's presidency, his first 4 years in office, and it really is a stain on our country that should never happen again, and Donald Trump is committed to making sure that it doesn't.
Generational damage is what I think was done, Director, but thank goodness that you found the Brennan notes. To your point, they're not like laying in a file cabinet. You got to go looking for them, and I do wonder, you're too modest to comment, but I do wonder if you had been picked to be the FBI Director instead of Chris Wray, would it have taken a decade for this to come to light? You don't have to answer because I will. I don't think so. Director John Lee Ratcliffe, now of the CIA.
So all crimes lead to funding, and the funding leads to the Clinton campaign and the DNC. So you can just follow the money. Check this out.
Former U.S. Attorney Guy Lewis. Guy, okay, this is Hillary's political dirty trick. This is her Watergate. She basically, broke into the front door of the FBI to put this story in there about Trump-Russia. Is the jury really expected to believe that Michael Sussman gave Trump-Russia Alpha Bank info to the FBI out of the goodness of his heart?
By the way, the Durham probe trials, you had FBI officials actually defending. You had FBI witnesses or witnesses for the prosecution defending, according to reports, defending the people on trial. So when you listen to this, just understand that all the Durham probe annex, all that information, the Tulsi Gabbard declassified ODNI reports, that did not come out yet. It didn't come out yet. So the Durham probe trials did not work because you had William Barr, you had DOJ that wasn't, you had a DOJ, FBI, CIA, you had the entire apparatus still protecting Democrats, Clinton, the DNC, all of that. It's a completely different ballgame, but the information here is very, very important. Check it out.
And for the good of America, just on his own?
Well, I think that's a tactical mistake by the defense in terms of trying to argue that, because, frankly, all criminal roads in this case lead back to the DNC and lead back to Hillary Clinton. And that meeting with the FBI was bought and paid for, according to the documents, according to the records, was bought and paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. So I don't know how much more clear you get.
Yeah, I mean, if Sussman is not working for Hillary, then why did he bill and, send expense reports to Hillary's campaign for his meeting with the FBI? If he's saying he had no intent to conceal to the FBI that it was.
There was also a text message that was incriminating, would have led to a conviction, but because it wasn't discovered within a certain time period, the jury was not allowed to look at it. So the whole thing was up until now, you didn't have Comey indicted. This was 3 years ago. You didn't have Comey indicted. You didn't have all these people indicted. And Clinton was light years away from being indicted. Now it's essentially imminent.
He was working for Hillary's campaign. Why didn't you just tell him?
Exactly. Liz, he's going to come in at the end and say, look the other way, no harm, no foul. Trump got elected anyway, so really, what are we doing here, ladies and gentlemen? And my only problem, look, John's a smart guy. I know him. He's a tough prosecutor. But I would have gone back and I would have indicted a conspiracy here. I think that's his only limitation. And you've seen some of the pre-trial.
And there are already, according to reports, but possibly, potentially, grand juries already looking at conspiracy statutes. This was 18 U.S. Code 371. I wrote about this in the Federalist. You could type in H.A. Goodman Federalist.
Rulings where the judge has said, an Obama appointee, the judge has said a lot of this evidence about that leads right back to the doorstep of Hillary Clinton is not going to come into evidence.
Who would you have indicted?
And that's,
who would you have indicted in a conspiracy?
I would have indicted the law firm. I would have indicted the other attorney from the law firm. I would have followed the case back to the campaigns of Hillary Clinton and the DNC.
And possibly indict Hillary?
Well, I would have looked very, very closely at it.
Okay.
Why not give her a grand jury subpoena and put her in the grand jury, make her testify to the truth, or subject herself to perjury?
He's 100% right, and there's already a grand jury pertaining to these allegations, according to Ratcliffe and others.
Obama on the witness stand?
Well, I don't know about that. I probably wouldn't Obama, but I got to tell you, if Hillary Clinton is a unindicted co-conspirator, she is involved like we know she is. Why not pursue her? Because she's what? Too powerful? Too political? I don't buy that.
Yeah, and then we had FBI agent Scott Hellman. He testified today. He's saying if my team knew that Sussman was coming in on behalf of Hillary's campaign, that would have changed the tenor of his probe. It looked like, the defense team is saying it was an open secret that Sussman was working for the Democrats. Okay, so then why are you texting the FBI lawyer the night before you were meeting with him saying, I'm not working for anyone? That's what Michael Sussman did. That's what John Durham's proof is. And the other thing, too, Guy, is federal prosecutor Deborah Britton Shaw in her opening argument, Guy, she's saying that this is about the entitlement and privilege of the Hillary campaign and her team and her lawyers, that they could just go in there and manipulate the FBI as a political tool for this October surprise against Trump, threatening the FBI. The New York Times is going to do the story anyway. This is the privilege of a team that thought they were so powerful, normal rules did not apply to them. Is that going to sway the jury?
Listen, I think that's a powerful argument. There's no question privilege was involved. Sussman felt, and he was able to pick up the phone, call the general counsel to the FBI, and get a meeting. That's a pretty special thing. But I think there's an element missing here, Liz.
Clinton could get a meeting with the FBI with a simple phone call from a couple of degrees of separation, okay, from a lawyer that essentially worked for her. Okay, so it's unbelievable the influence. It's unbelievable the influence that Clinton had and that Democrats had within the U.S. government. But again, see, morally superior liberal Democrats, leftists, socialists, communists, they don't view their political side as despotic or autocratic, or they don't view themselves to be the authoritarians because they don't know how Democrats, in this case Clinton, or most cases Clinton, utilize bureaucracy to set up and frame innocent people, to try to crush and destroy political opponents through bureaucracy. They don't see bureaucracy, they don't see government as authoritarian, even though that's what you would, because that's what you would define as authoritarian, a government that crushes any dissent. They do so through bureaucracy, through intel agencies. The average Democrat doesn't see or understand any of this or know any of this. When they're told, they don't care. Let's continue.
as a prosecutor, did this for a long, long time, I would have thrown a few more fastballs to the head. I would have described that this does go back to Hillary Clinton, that this does go back, this conspiracy does lead directly back to the DNC, and these people were involved. It was the dirtiest trick of all times in terms of politics.
Yeah, and you're right. It's Hillary, it's her campaign right hand, it's Robbie Mook, it's Sussman, it's Christopher Steele, Mark Elias. They stage managed what is widely considered the worst political hit job in U.S. political history. Again, take out the names, right? Take out the names of everybody involved. That's what the prosecutors are saying this is just flat out dirty tricks, that it's wrong to use the FBI as a political tool. And, everybody does opposition research, Republicans and Democrats. People get that. What's wrong is lying to the FBI and using the FBI in this way. Your final word.
Listen, if you or me or any of the good folks watching would have walked into the FBI, lied, created this whole scheme, this conspiracy, it wouldn't have just been you or me on the other side of the V. It would have been a dozen people who were facing charges, and that's my only complaint about this prosecution.
Yeah, it's about the destruction of public trust.
So this former U.S. attorney is 100% right. It's a conspiracy. This was 3 years ago, but we know it's a conspiracy. People conspired. They worked together. They did so through bureaucracy, okay? And so what Democrats will say, or media, this has been already litigated. No, it hasn't. None of it has. None of it has. The Durham probe trials have very little to do with the conspiracy statutes that will be leveled against Clinton and Brennan and Comey and others. Comey is facing not only indictment for lying or false statements, he's facing future indictments, the same indictments in the future, near future, pertaining to conspiracy statutes. Just like this is okay. The rebuttal will be no, nothing. Everything was above board. They have a right to have a lawyer call the FBI lawyer. The equivalent is Bernie Madoff. What Hillary Clinton and Comey and Brennan and McCabe and Clapper and all of them did was exactly like it was a political Ponzi scheme in the manner that Bernie Madoff conducted this Ponzi scheme, a criminal Ponzi scheme. Bernie Madoff bought and sold stocks completely legally in retirement accounts or in other accounts, very legal. Had new investors every couple of days, months, year. That's completely legal. Had a corporation legally. Did all of these things legally. What he did, though, was a Ponzi scheme. He didn't commit a Ponzi scheme by robbing a bank. That's an illegal act. He committed a Ponzi scheme with hundreds of different legal activities, opening up accounts, buying and selling stocks and mutual funds, shorting companies. So he did all of these things legally, but in aggregate, it was a conspiracy. That's what that's what Russiagate was. In aggregate, it was a criminal conspiracy where people will go to prison and get indicted, arrested, convicted, and go to prison eventually. But when you look at each piece of the puzzle, it seemingly looks legal. Let's check this out.
Is it accountability? The Federal Election Commission is now fining Hillary Clinton and the Democrat National Committee over the way it paid a firm to produce the notorious Steele dossier. The Clinton campaign has been fined $8,000 and the DNC slapped with a $105,000 penalty after a 2016 letter revealed that they violated campaign finance rules. The FEC says both parties failed to properly report payments for opposition research and the production of the dossier, instead labeling the payments legal services. Former President Trump now asking, where do I get my reputation back? Dagan McDowell, I mean, $8,000 fine, really. This is obviously not much in terms of accountability after 4 years of debate in this country, fights, division because of the Steele dossier and the Russia collusion lie.
It's a joke. It's $118,000 combined. No, excuse me, $113,000 combined. $8,000 from the Clinton campaign when the Clinton.
It was a joke in terms of the dollar amount, but they paid a Federal Election Commission fine. So that's also key to all of this. They broke Federal Election Commission laws, FEC laws. Mueller couldn't even find an FEC crime with Trump.
And her cronies and the DNC paid $1 million for the Steele dossier combined, well, to Perkins Coie, the law firm behind all of this. And they actually had the audacity to say that the money had gone toward legal advice and services. So this is a whole lot of nothing. And and as you were pointing out, this was a dossier full of lies that the FBI used to spy on a member of the Trump campaign leading up to the election. And we still have not gotten any justice for what was going on within the government.
No, we have not. We are waiting to see justice at the FBI. Right. By the way, my question has been, when did the FBI decide to start working with the Clinton campaign to take down her political enemy, Mark? It appears the Clinton machine is alive and well with this $8,000 fine.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, so where there's a will, there's a way, and where there's a political scandal, you'll probably find a Clinton. I mean, look, they fight dirty, they're deceptive, especially when you look at how they label this as legal advice. So we finally all know, it's finally been confirmed, the Steele dossier was always fabricated to smear Donald Trump and skew the results of the election.
So again, the Durham probe annex, ladies and gentlemen. So this is Durham. The interviews you're watching right now are from the Durham probe. Okay, we'll get to the past couple of weeks in a second. But the Durham probe did not have the declassified intelligence. You didn't have Kash Patel at the FBI. You didn't have Pam Bondi at the DOJ. You didn't have James Comey indicted. Okay, you didn't have John Ratcliffe at CIA and Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. You didn't have all of these things. So you weren't able to you weren't able to really indict anyone up until President Trump's second term. When President Trump moved his head, thank God, in Butler, Pennsylvania, and that poor man, God bless his soul, was defending his family. Okay, that's why one of the things that make you question a belief in God, but also reaffirm a belief in God. Trump moved his head. Once he moved his head and survived, everyone who did him wrong was going to get indicted. But then, so that's divine intervention. But why didn't the divine intervention take place to save that man, that firefighter protecting his family? You know, God bless him and his family. God bless his soul. So he was a hero. But my point is, you know, moving away from the theology, we'll just focus on the divine intervention with Trump. He moved his head. That projectile missed, you know, ending his life. And every single person that tried to set him up and frame him and thrust this country into a new Cold War faces not only indictment, but criminal indictment, conviction. Trump is just getting started with this because he has, imagine how passionate I am, multiply that times 1,000,000 with President Trump and everyone around him.
Welcome back. Harvard professor Charles Lieber has been found guilty for lying to the government investigators about his participation in the CCP's Thousands Talents program. Lieber was also charged with failing to disclose cash payments, hundreds of thousands of dollars, on his tax returns and concealing the existence of a Chinese bank account. Joining me right now is former U.S. Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker. Matt, it's great to see you this morning. Thanks very much. And I know that during the Trump administration, there was a string of indictments of similar nature, academics who were working with the Chinese Communist Party. First, tell us the CCP's goals here, what it's trying to do, as it has been trying to infiltrate academia in America for many years now.
Yeah, and it's good to be with you this morning, Maria. What you see in this Dr. Lieber case, in addition to several of these other types of cases, are the Chinese organized and trying to steal American technology, innovation, and research. And, you know, Mr. Lieber was trying to recruit others, experts in their fields, to work with and for the Chinese government to our country. So, yes, there's clearly been
the cost. So I want to make sure people understand who have made rehabilitative progress.
This rising violent crime
Connected to the lawyers of Chris counsel telling a federal court that he's scrutinizing members of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. No surprise here to me, no surprise to you. Durham's team requesting a judge inquire into a potential conflict of interest connected to the lawyers of Christopher Steele's main source, Igor Danchenko. Durham's team says a separate lawyer at their firm is also currently representing Clinton's 2016 campaign and some of its former employees. Oh, now, what a coincidence, Matt. The same law firm that is representing Igor Danchenko, the guy who lied about the dossier, same firm representing Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Yeah, and obviously because...
So back then the fix was in. And look, you might get, there's a chance that the Comey indictment and the Letitia James indictment will be tossed by a judge that says that Lindsay Halligan, the federal prosecutor, was not lawfully appointed. It don't matter. They're going to maybe not they won't be able to indict Comey or Letitia James on the same charges, but there are other charges that they can indict them with a new attorney eventually, that or the conspiracy statutes, okay, which will emanate from a different federal prosecutor. So there's a chance this coming week. If that doesn't happen, and I don't think it'll happen, but if that doesn't happen, it's game, set, match for President Trump. But I think the DOJ and Pam Bondi have a pretty good foothold on the bureaucracy of things. So I don't think they would have. I don't think that all the legal scholars are going to be right about this. But let's continue. Comey said he wanted a trial, and he's doing everything possible not to get to the trial. That should tell you something. But let's continue.
Because they are at the same firm, they could share information hypothetically. And, you know, I mean, where Durham is going is exactly what his charge is, which is to get to the origins of the Russian collusion fable. And I think at the end of the day, all roads are leading to the Hillary Clinton campaign and maybe even Hillary Clinton herself, because, you know, this was a complete fabrication that was used to obfuscate the media, to anyone that was paying attention, to get them off of the 30,000 emails that Hillary Clinton had destroyed. And so what did they do? They did the classic 4-year-old game. Well, it's you, not me. It's your fault. And, they created this Russian collusion story. And it's, I think Durham is on the trail, and I think he is going to find where this started and who started the lie.
Unbelievable how effective they were in terms of ensnaring the FBI and government agencies to run around with their lie of Russia collusion, Matt.
It's because they wanted to believe it. It's because they didn't like Donald Trump. They didn't like what he stood for. They knew he was an outsider. He was not a person from the swamp.
That's right.
And that he was going to shake things up and hold people accountable. And he did exactly that. And they didn't like that. And they didn't like being asked tough questions. They didn't like being held accountable for their actions. And that's what this is. This is a classic Washington rising up against something they don't like.
So President Trump and the DOJ, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, John Ratcliffe, they're going to have to indict everyone before the House potentially goes to Democrats, although they might not get the House, which would be so fitting. But all of these indictments will take place within the next year, less than that, probably 3, 4, 5 months. Once Brennan's indictment takes place, that sets the stage for the conspiracy statutes for Clinton. Also, Clinton could face perjury charges because the Durham probe ended less than 5 years ago, ended in 2022, 2023. So that's within the statute of limitations for any perjury that she committed, which is almost certain. Let's continue.
Consequences for bad faith deep state actors continue. Earlier today, the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan referred former CIA Director John Brennan to the DOJ for prosecution over allegations that he made false statements to Congress about his role in the Russia collusion hoax. In his letter, Jordan said, in part, quote, making false statements before Congress is a crime that undermines the integrity of the committee's constitutional duty to conduct oversight. Anyway, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan is with us with more. I've read your letter to Pam Bondi. It is a, powerful prima facie case. He directly lied to Congress numerous times, and you believe you have the evidence.
Yeah, you're not supposed to lie, Sean, but you're definitely not supposed to lie when you're under oath talking to Congress. And that's exactly what it looks like John Brennan did.
So what are these people lying about? What is Comey? What is Brennan? What are all these people lying about? Okay, the accusations directly correlate to the initial allegation. With Trump Russia, they got them on process crimes that had nothing to do with Trump colluding with Russia because he didn't. These people actually did set up and frame Trump. So they're lying about everything associated with setting up and framing Trump. That's the underlying crime which took place. Trump never had to collude with Russia, and furthermore, the Clinton campaign wanted Trump. It's within their own emails, so how could they and the Russians both want Trump? And then, if you want to, Comey wrote the Comey letter. I remember I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. Okay, I remember how, arrogant and overconfident and narcissistic the I'm with her crowd was. They could not fathom losing, even after the Comey letter. But that's really what, because I remember after the Comey letter, people at the post office were saying, oh my God, Clinton again? Oh my God. So that's what sunk Clinton's campaign. Let's continue. Because top classified data was being forwarded from Uma Abedin's laptop to Anthony Weiner, according to James Comey in testimony. But anyway, let's continue.
He said he wasn't involved with the dossier at all. He said that to us under oath. He said he didn't want it included in the intelligence community assessment, the report that's put together. But then ODNI Director Tulsi Gabbard declassified a report that said just the opposite. In fact, John Brennan put in writing that he felt the dossier should be included in the report. And more importantly, when he was confronted by an individual who works at the CIA, and the individual said, Mr. Brennan, this dossier just doesn't hold up. There's not the underlying intelligence to support it. And Brennan's response was, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Showing his true color, showing that he was out to get President Trump. So we think he lied. We think it's clear. And I'll be, Sean, I don't do a lot of these. I've done very few referrals. You got to have the evidence to do this. We think it's there. We think it is clear. We appreciate what Tulsi released and declassified that report. And that's why we sent it to the Justice Department, and we'll see what the Attorney General Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Blanche do with it now.
They rejected the first intel assessment. Senior career intel officials at the CIA concluded there was no Trump-Russia collusion after the 2016 election. The declassified documents say Obama himself ordered it. And didn't they include, and didn't Brennan know, and wasn't he a part of the meeting that took place about a new intelligence assessment in this case?
Yeah. They changed the report between Election Day 2016, Inauguration Day in January 2017. They changed it in December, and they changed it to say something that wasn't supported by the intelligence. And then, to make matters worse, they go up to Trump Tower on January 6, 2017, and brief the president on the dossier that they know is garbage.
That's what's called a shakedown. They try to intimidate. Imagine somebody coming to you at your job saying, hey, we have a dossier about you. Just want to let you know. I mean, it's not verified yet, but it said that you were having a romantic relationship with a canine or a rabbit. It's not verified, and we're looking into it. So, okay, have a nice day. It's like, what? You're completely setting me up. You're trying to blackmail me. And that's what they did to Trump. They said, oh, we have this information that says you were in a Moscow hotel room. It's not verified yet, but just let you know we have it. And that's how they introduced President Trump to the presidency.
That someone in the CIA who's familiar with the underlying intelligence told Director Brennan, you shouldn't use this. It doesn't hold up. But his response again was, doesn't it ring true? We're going to go up, set up President Trump, and create the predicate for Mueller and all the other garbage they did in his first term. And I always point out, this is when it all began. And remember, Sean, with John Brennan, there's a pattern. We include this in our letter. I think he lied to Congressman Gowdy back in 2017 about this very subject. We include that. And the irony, of course, is he lied under oath to us when we were questioning him about a different issue. The 51 former intel officials who signed that garbage letter saying the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian information operation, which was pure garbage. So there's a pattern with Mr. Brennan. We illustrate that. But the clear evidence where he violated 18 U.S.C. 1001, we believe, is when he made those statements and then Director Gabbard, God bless her, released the declassified report that said something entirely different.
All right.
So it's all going down, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it took 10 years, all right? It took 10 years from we're still living in 2016. I'm a hologram. I'm a hologram from 2016. I'm like the Princess Leia hologram from Star Wars. Save us, Obi-Wan, your only hope. No, what is it? What did she say? Obi-Wan, save us, your only hope. I forgot exactly. In the chat, what did Princess Leia say in the hologram?
Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley is out with a new batch of documents pertaining to the Trump-Russia investigation. And the newly declassified documents were allegedly held in burn bags in a secret room at FBI headquarters. Those would be containers that hold classified docs meant to be destroyed after a specified time. It's 29 pages, an annex or addendum to the 2023 Durham report, exposing a reported Clinton campaign plot to falsely tie President Trump to Russia. Here's Chairman Grassley.
I think we need maximum transparency on all the schemes that were going on 10 years ago to either stop Trump from being elected or after he was elected to ruin his presidency. And that's what this Durham report is all about. It was all effort of total distraction and to make it look like Russia was playing a very major role in helping Trump to be elected, and now we know none of that was true. And now with this Durham report annex out, it finally proves that the FBI was covering up.
Look, the story started breaking right before those comments, so those were Grassley's first reactions to this less than an hour ago. Justice correspondent David Spunt now. David.
Well, hi, Harris. Special Counsel John Durham's investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia narrative began in 2019, ended 4 years later in 2023. Now, he took two people to trial, lost both times, but he did, Harris, secure a plea deal with a former FBI lawyer. Durham's final report, a 300-page document. Here he is in 2023.
The Durham probe is what will be used for the conspiracy statutes and also for the perjury. The Durham probe was a success. He deserves the Presidential Medal of Freedom, this man. He was awesome. Okay, John Durham did exactly what he needed to do to set up, to compile all the evidence needed for future prosecutions. This man was a genius.
Our findings were sobering. I can tell you, having spent 40 years plus as a federal prosecutor, they are particularly sobering to me.
Now, for the first time, we're seeing this declassified now annex. It's 29 pages. It discusses more allegations and information about the Clinton campaign's alleged efforts to discredit then candidate Trump. Durham obtained emails via Russian intelligence, and the emails were allegedly written by
every single Democrat will vote for her again when she runs after indicted for actually committing a crime. Trump didn't commit any crimes. He was indicted anyway. And so they had to make everything morally relative. She actually committed many crimes. Servers, top secret intel on servers, setting up and framing Trump with RUSSIAGATE. Unbelievable. Uranium one, we can go on forever. She will run. She'll be the nominee. Almost certainly. They don't have anyone else. AOC? Who? Newsom? Okay, Hillary Clinton. She'll write. Hillary Clinton will write a Newsom dossier, okay, or an AOC dossier, and then filter it through, and then BuzzFeed. She'll find a publication to publish them. Anyway, let's continue.
By a man named Leonard with the Open Society Foundation. That's the foundation tied to George Soros. According to the annex, Leonard writes about a Clinton campaign advisor named Julianne. She's also referred to by Julie and Julia. One of the emails says, Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for a post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. In another email obtained by Durham, Leonard allegedly wrote, HRC, meaning Hillary Rodham Clinton, approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. Now, Mr. Durham interviewed Julie, who told him that she didn't draft or recall receiving any of these Leonard emails. The annex goes on to explain that the FBI was fully alerted to the possibility that at least some of the information it received about the Trump campaign might have origins with the Clinton campaign or Russian disinformation, but the FBI apparently dismissed that information, quote, as not credible without any investigative steps actually having been taken to either corroborate or disprove the allegations. I want to be clear, we've reached out to those mentioned in this annex that I just brought up in this report, but we have yet to hear back. Harris?
David, you are on it. Like I said, it has barely been an hour that this is breaking, so thank you very much for the update on it.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me at...
So this is the Durham Probe Annex. This is all the information that can be used, that will be used, all the declassified data. You can see the U.S. Senate Judiciary Durham Probe Annex to indict everyone involved. Okay, check this out, especially Clinton and others.
Going to be more indictments coming over the next 3.5 years of the Trump administration. If you look at the Comey indictment, Martha, this was a grand jury indictment delivered in Alexandria, Virginia, not exactly a hotbed of Donald Trump's political support. There were 3 requested indictments. The grand jury returned 2 of those 3 indictments. So I think they showed they were judicious. I think that it showed clearly that there were a couple of things that James Comey did wrong.
The deep state reckoning is just beginning, with the grand jury indicting former FBI Director James Comey for lying to and obstructing Congress. The charges center around Comey's congressional testimony regarding the origins of the Russia hoax. And some believe he could face even more charges for his role in it.
Will be lucky if there is not a grand conspiracy charge brought. Comey and company and all of them got involved in the so-called Clinton plan, which, if you remember, the Clinton plan was to do what? To say that the Trump campaign was colluding with the Russians. That's like the quintessential definition of conspiracy.
This is the tip of the iceberg. He leaked classified information to create a narrative politically. I think that's a strong case. But there's so much else. Comey knew then what we all know now and ignored it. I believe he withheld exculpatory information from the court because he wanted Trump to be found guilty.
But some are defending Comey, including his former right-hand man, Andrew McCabe.
I'm not aware of Jim Comey ever authorizing some other person to leak information.
So this is the hilarious game that they play. I'm not aware of Comey authorizing some other person. Why not? I'm not aware of Comey authorizing anyone. Because he's still sticking to what happened. Comey authorized him or gave him the green light to leak information to the Wall Street Journal or to any other publication. That's what he stated in the IG report. And that's his claim from the very beginning, that he was allowed to leak. Because Comey allowed people to leak. But he's like, oh, I'm not aware of Comey leaking to some other person. I mean, it's so amusing. It's unbelievable.
That's not something I experienced personally. It's not something I saw in all the time I spent working around Jim Comey. I didn't ever see Jim Comey authorizing other people to leak information.
All right, Joe.
So to the casual observer, he said, I never author. See, again, the semantic games are so easily like exposed. You can decipher what they're saying so easily. It's so hilarious. I never saw Comey authorizing other people, anyone else. But he's also saying that he was authorized. They're 24/7 deposition mode, these wonderful, morally superior bureaucrats.
Joey, answering a reporter's question is a lot different than what you say to Congress when you're under oath.
Yeah, the indictment was short and sweet. So there's a lot of information that we don't have, such as what exactly they indicted him on. But you got McCabe there saying, I don't think I ever remember that. But it's also his testimony juxtaposed to Comey's that Ted Cruz was getting at. So I don't know much about this, and I'm not a lawyer, but I do know a big part of the government's plan, usually in things like this, is to start to get someone to tell on the other to keep themselves out of trouble.
And that is what's going to take place. Check this out.
George. To Congress and welcome back. Now, reaction on Wednesday. Former FBI Director Jim Comey pleaded not guilty to federal charges of making false statements to Congress and obstruction. Meanwhile, New York Attorney General Letitia James was indicted.
So both are trying to get the case thrown out because the federal prosecutor, they're saying Lindsay Halligan, it was not lawfully appointed. There's a possibility that the cases will be thrown out. They'll just get indicted again. I don't think that the cases will get thrown out, but if the cases don't get thrown out, which I don't think they will, what a loss. The initial loss, because Comey is stating, oh, let's go ahead, let's go for trial. Well, he doesn't want a trial because he did lie. He did lie, and it was clear as day. Also, there's almost certain potential mortgage fraud, and they didn't indict Letitia James on all the allegations. So this is an ongoing story. Hit subscribe if you're new to this channel. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this to watch and share the latest segments there.
By a federal grand jury in Virginia on bank fraud charges for allegedly making false statements on a mortgage application that netted her about $19,000. Joining me now with more on all of this is Matt Taibbi. He is editor-in-chief of Racket News, and Mike Davis. He is president of the Article 3 Project. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Let me first get your reaction to all of this. Matt Taibbi.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Comey case, especially with the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, all the Crossfire investigations, I thought at the time those should have been enormous Watergate level stories because it was about surveillance of a major party presidential candidate. Now, I think in conjunction with Arctic frost, you have all these senators who are finally seeing that domestic political surveillance has been a major unreported problem in this country for a long time.
Wow. Well, yeah, we just spoke with a senator who was really affected. Bill Hagerty was tracked, and he said it happened to him 3 times. Mike, is all of this connected? We've been covering, obviously, the Russia collusion lie for a decade, and my viewers are well aware that it was fake from day one. But do you think this is all connected, and is this enough to create a conspiracy charge against Jim Comey and his friends who were part of that cabal?
Yeah, those indictments we just saw for Comey and Tish James are the appetizer indictments. And the big one, the main course, is going to be the conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241. I've publicly called for this for the last 3+ years since the Mar-a-Lago raid. Remember this with the Russian collusion hoax. The Democrats made this up to help Hillary Clinton's campaign, to cover up her corruption, and to take out presidential candidate Donald Trump. They failed. President Trump went into office, and so they tried to destroy him while he was in office, and they tried to destroy him with the lawfare because he declassified Crossfire Hurricane before he left office the first time.
And you believe that the Mar-a-Lago raid was also part of it. They were actually looking for the assessment of Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 presidential election. It was declassified. I have it right here. Do you believe that's what they were looking for?
1,000%. And those people who did this raid, like Jay Bratz and others, they did this to cover up their own corruption. This is the biggest scandal in American history. They politicized and weaponized intel agencies and law enforcement to take out their political enemy. This is third world stuff. And I would say to these lawfare Democrats, justice is definitely coming.
So Mike Davis is awesome. Article 3 Project, he has a YouTube channel. Subscribe to his channel, ladies and gentlemen. Article 3 Project, Mike Davis. He is fantastic. Let's continue.
Matt, this is all pretty extraordinary.
It is, but again, I think we're now finally seeing the proper perspective on it. I agree with Mr. Davis.
Of Ohio, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee, so that's appropriate. Also on the Oversight and Reform Committee. Congressman, great to have you in focus today. So you heard what's at stake on both sides here. I want to get your take on it.
Well, I think Zussman lied. I think it's material. Whether a D.C. jury will convict him, only the good Lord knows. But I think the big takeaway here was what we learned a few days back when we learned that Secretary Clinton told Zussman to take false information to the press that was also then taken to the FBI. I mean, step back and think about this. This is the former Secretary of State. This is the former First Lady. This is the former Senator, United States Senator from the state of New York, and candidate for one of the major parties for President of the United States. And she's encouraging a false narrative to be taken to the press. And of course, it was also taken to the FBI. I mean, I think that is huge. And so much so that the former Attorney General called it seditious. So, and again, you'd have to take my word for that. This is her campaign manager, Robbie Mook, under oath in a court of law making that statement. So that's the big takeaway here. We'll see what the jury does today or tomorrow whenever they reach a decision.
Yeah, and those are important things to point out because as I laid out, an acquittal here could, bring in.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a couple years back, but that was the part of the Durham probe. All of this ties in. The Durham probe annex and the declassified documents from Tulsi Gabbard, what Mike Davis just talked about, conspiracy statutes, the grand jury is underway. So those indictments are imminent. Clinton, essentially, once Comey was indicted, they were all indicted. Check this out.
Peddled the lie for years, though, are circling the wagons.
This is extraordinarily stupid. It's extraordinarily stupid on so many counts. Barack Obama had nothing to do with this by anybody's accounts.
We're all for transparency on any potential corruption, right? But this is something that has been combed over for a decade now.
I think they're trying to create the appearance of progress in this investigation without actually making any progress.
They all did their job, right? For the 4 years, 5 years. Meanwhile, President Trump, he's awaiting answers.
I have nothing to do. Pam is doing a great job. I have nothing to do with it. I will tell you.
I love President Trump. He has everything to do with it, which is fantastic because he was set up and framed. And had he not moved his head, thank God he did, he wouldn't be here. So he has experienced way too much to allow anyone to get away with such treachery.
I'll tell you this. They deserve it. I was happy to hear it. I actually read it just like you did. I have nothing to do with it.
Here with reaction is Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. Director Gabbard, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Laura.
So what the Director of National Intelligence declassified, in addition to the Durham probe annex, that is exactly what is going to be the basis of the conspiracy statutes. The declassified documents, they're still going to declassify more documents. So they have the evidence, they have the Department of Justice and the intel agencies, everything that Democrats and Clinton and Brennan and others used against Trump is firmly within President Trump's administration's control.
There's a report tonight from the Federalist that the DOJ is actually asking you for more documents in its grand jury probe. Is that true? And what are they asking for now?
Hi, I'm JT, and I made Result Hunter.
That is true, Laura, and I just want to point out how important this is, that Attorney General Pam Bondi, through the Department of Justice, is taking this necessary first step toward accountability, which is essential for the American people to begin to have any kind of trust in the integrity of our democratic republic. I met with the Department of Justice prosecutors today, and yes, they are committed to leaving no stone unturned as they conduct this grand jury investigation and find the truth. Obviously, we've already handed over the documents that we've declassified and released publicly over the last few weeks. They have more questions, and they're going to be really taking a deep dive into this.
Also, Hillary Clinton lied about Tulsi Gabbard, said she was linked to Russia. But see, again, the Clintons and the Democrats and President Obama's administration was linked directly to the Uranium One sale. According to the New York Times, 20% of U.S. uranium capacity as money flowed into the foundation. And so the people who live in the glass houses are throwing the stones. They've been throwing stones for the past 10 years. Now Tulsi Gabbard has declassified information. Now all the information leads to indictment of Clinton and others. Hit subscribe to this channel if you're new. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel right after this.
Again, looking everywhere to find the truth and conduct this very serious investigation. You heard the media reaction. A lot of these same people were just buying lock, stock, and barrel what was sold to them during the 2016 election. But they're essentially saying, this is all old news. This is such a stupid political move on their part. And to that, you say? They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents a couple of weeks ago. They tried to ignore it. When they realized that they weren't going to get away with this, that this story was going to continue breathing life, we continued releasing new documents. Then they decided, oh, we'll take this approach of say, oh, this is nothing. There's nothing really to see here. This is bizarre. This is a conspiracy. These are the things that they do over and over and over again. And the next step they will take when they feel that they are not succeeding in getting rid of this truth that we have uncovered for the American people, then they will go down the route of we must destroy and smear and attack the credibility of those who are delivering the truth to the American people. They've done this to President Trump. They've done this to me. They've done this to so many.
And this is why nobody trusts media. There's a Harper's article talking about, well, why don't we trust media? We don't trust media. The answer is that because the average journalist is a lifelong Democrat or socialist or essentially works as a public relations executive for the Democratic Party. All these publications, Washington Post, New York Times, Atlantic, Rolling Stone, Vanity Fair, Esquire. We can look at, there's about 30, Daily Beast, there's 30 publications that will always say Trump bad, Democrats good. That will always cover up Hunter's laptop. Oh, it's a Russian disinformation. 50 intel officials lied about it. They will always lie by omission. American media doesn't overtly lie. American media lies by omission and has one political side that they favor. And everyone knows this. That's why nobody trusts media. Truth is not the goal for American media. What is the goal? The objective is to prop up one political party. If Democrats didn't have virtually the entire media narrative, Jimmy Kimmel, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, John Oliver, Robert De Niro, Hollywood, the political media, if they didn't have they used to have social media algorithms. If they didn't have every single advantage, they would lose all the time. The Democrats aren't propped up by ideals or values. You can ask Bernie Sanders or Biden. They don't even have functioning primaries. Ask Biden. It takes 3 weeks for him to, the most popular candidate of all time, Biden, Joe Biden, if you deny it, you should never have been born. The most popular candidate of all time lost political capital in less than 4 years. George Clooney writes an op-ed. He's gone. How does that happen? Did he even have that political capital to begin with? And so the issue is that the media, which is what propped up the Democratic Party, nobody trusts. Nobody really cares about Hollywood also. All of these advantages they had, social media algorithms, you can now speak and say what's on your mind generally. You couldn't for the past 5, 6, 7 years. And so every advantage they have is gone.
Many different people, once again, who are trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Now, Director, you said there was irrefutable evidence that Obama was the mastermind of this intelligence manipulation and the perpetuation of the Russia hoax.
This is called negotiation. I think that President Trump, his administration, is saying that President Obama is at the heart of all this. He faces criminal liability. They're not going to indict President Obama ever. He does face criminal liability. He was the president when this all started. James Clapper blamed Obama for Clapper's work setting up and framing Trump on a CNN interview. But this is the issue. President Obama and Trump are friends. President Trump and President Obama are friends. Number one, when Clinton and others get indicted, the indictments are imminent. When they get indicted, President Obama benefits tremendously. He circumvents all criminal liability, and he takes over the Democratic Party without any rival. That's my speculation. I'm not saying it's a fact. Nobody can say it's a conspiracy theory because I can speculate and I can give analysis based on what I see. They all face criminal liability, even President Obama, but President Obama is almost certainly helping President Trump. If you saw the way they spoke at Jimmy Carter's funeral, they're friends. Trump and Obama are friends. Trump and Clinton are not friends. Hit subscribe if you're new. Check this out.
What is that irrefutable evidence for our viewers tonight?
Investors.
Yeah, Laura, as you were playing those clips of these people like Morning Joe seemingly befuddled, saying that by no account is any of this true, I would challenge them to see if they've actually read the documents, every single page of the documents that we've released over the last couple of weeks. If not, go to odni.gov, It's all right there for anyone to see. And those who go in and read this will see how President Obama directed that a National Security Council meeting be called to talk about Russia, that the report that came out of that meeting was filled with tasks that were delivered by James Clapper's assistant to John Brennan and to other elements of the intelligence community. John Brennan was the head of the CIA at the time, all saying per the president's direction, per the president's order. And very specifically, they were tasked to create an intelligence assessment that detailed how Moscow tried to influence the election, not if, but how. And this was the beginning of this manufactured intelligence assessment where they knowingly wrote things in this assessment that were false, and they knew they were false. They knew that they were basing it on discredited intelligence or documents like the Steele dossier that was politically motivated and that they knew was false. And this was how they came up with the Russia hoax that was then weaponized and used to try to delegitimize the president, President Trump, and to try to ultimately enact this years-long coup throughout his entire 4 years of his first administration.
And they further say that there's like this idea of saying that Obama is guilty of treason, that there's almost no chance that he's going to be charged or convicted of treason. So why even go there?
It's called the art of the deal. So he lets President Obama know, hey, there's criminal liability there. President Obama knows that. Says, yeah, they're all going to turn on me anyway. Clapper already did. So why would President Obama be blamed? Because when Clinton and Clapper and Brennan and Comey are under conspiracy statute indictments and they face trial, they're all going to say we did all of this because President Obama directed us. That's why President Obama is almost certainly helping President Trump. Why would he not help President Trump? He circumvents criminal liability from all of the people that are going to blame him, all the criminals who set up and framed Trump will blame President Obama.
And I'll pose that question to you.
The integrity of our democratic republic depends on the American people knowing the truth about what actually happened and seeking that accountability, bringing about that accountability. I don't know how else to characterize what happens when there is a sitting president of the United States, there is a director of the CIA, a director of national intelligence under President Obama, the head of the NSA, James Comey is the head of the FBI, all coming together, and this is documented in what we released, all coming together to create this lie with the intent of delegitimizing the duly elected president of the United States because the person they wanted to win actually lost. And the American people made their own choice in spite of everything that happened in that 2016 election, and they chose Donald Trump. This was not a one-off thing. This wasn't just, oh, well, they fudged the lines a little bit. They created a lie and propagated that lie in order to try to undermine the person that the American people chose to be our president and commander-in-chief.
To your point that you made earlier, that when they're losing on the facts, they demonize the messenger. And in this case, you're the messenger. And I think this is a big reason your opposition to the forever war syndrome, that's one reason. But then this was another reason they clearly did not want you in your position. And to that point, Mark Warner, of course, Democrat senator from Virginia, wrote on X today, Tulsi Gabbard is a threat to our national security and should be fired. He's taking his orders pretty well, don't you think, Director?
He has and continues to be a reliable soldier. And you're right there, Laura, to make that comparison, because these very same tactics they are using now are the same tactics that the warmongers of Washington have consistently used whenever anyone challenges them to say, hey, this does not serve the best interests of the American people. It does not make us more safe, secure, and free. So why are you doing this? Exposing these people for who they are. And once again, who is the deep state? What does it consist of? We're seeing this revealed in real time here. And it's important for the American people to pay attention and realize, like, hey, with the mainstream propaganda media, we got to pay attention. We got to use our common sense and recognize we should accept nothing they say at face value.
And how important is it to root out any remaining problems in these agencies, Director? Because we need our people to believe in the FBI.
Ladies and gentlemen, the chat, that is the algorithm, has nothing to do with me. That's the algorithm on this platform. But let's continue.
To believe in the CIA, to or get rid of them altogether. I mean, I hate to say that, or just completely defund a lot of these intelligence agencies. If we can't trust them, if they're going to subvert democracy and subvert our presidency, why are we funding them?
Well, this is, and I'll go back to that Mark Warner tweet that you put out saying that I'm a threat to national security. Why? Because I'm actually exposing the truth. As Director of National Intelligence, I'm doing the work to go and root out those deep state bad actors within the intelligence community, because our country's national security depends on it. The rule of law requires it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this right here, this interaction right here, the John Durham testimony in 2 years ago, okay, which is within the statute of limitations, is exactly why Clinton and others will be indicted, not only for perjury, but for the conspiracy statutes. There will be numerous indictments per individual, according to John Ratcliffe and others. Check this out. This is the basis for the Hillary Clinton indictment.
Durham, in the summer of 2016, did our government receive intelligence that suggested Secretary Clinton had approved a plan to tie President Trump to Russia?
Yes.
Was that intelligence important enough for Director Brennan to go brief the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, and the Director of the FBI?
Yes.
And was that intelligence put then into a memorandum, a referral memorandum?
Yes.
And was that memorandum then given to Director Comey and Agent Strzok?
That's who it was addressed to, yes.
Did Director Comey share that memorandum with the FISA court?
I'm sorry,
Did he share that memorandum with the FISA court? Did Director Comey do that?
I'm not aware of that if he did.
Did he share it with the lawyers preparing the FISA application?
Not to my knowledge.
Did he share it with the agents on the case, working the Crossfire Hurricane case?
No.
Didn't share it with the agents on the case. Can you tell the committee what happened when you took that referral memo and shared it with one of those agents, specifically Supervisory Special Agent Number 1?
We interviewed the first supervisor of the Crossfire investigation, the operational person. We showed him the intelligence information. He indicated he had never seen it before. He immediately became emotional, got up and left the room with his lawyer.
Why on earth would he have become emotional?
Spent some time in the hallway, came back.
He was ticked off, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was ticked off because this is something he should have had as an agent on the case. This is important information that the director of the FBI kept from the people doing the investigation.
The information was kept from him.
Who's Charles Dolan?
Charles Dolan is a public relations person here in Washington, D.C. He had prior involvement, professional involvement with Russian government, representing Russian government interests. He was a person that was associated with Igor Danchenko.
He was also buddies with the Clintons, wasn't he?
He had held positions when President Clinton was president.
In their campaign advisory to Secretary Clinton's presidential campaign, executive director of the Democrat Governors Association. That's the same Charles Dolan we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, and wasn't he also a key source for information in the dossier?
He provided some information that was included in
Ritz-Carlton stuff, the Manafort stuff. In the Crossfire Hurricane investigation and the Mueller investigation, when the FBI interviewed Mr. Dolan, what did he have to say?
To my knowledge, they didn't interview Mr. Dolan.
They didn't interview this guy? Source for the dossier? Key information in the dossier? Buddies with the Clintons, and they didn't talk to him?
No. I mean, we report on that because even Christopher Steele in October 2016 identified Dolan as somebody that might have information.
I find it interesting they didn't talk to him. Were there agents on the case who wanted to talk to Mr. Dolan, Mr. Durham?
Yes.
What happened to analyst number 1? She kept pushing to talk to Mr. Dolan. She was ultimately turned down. What happened to her the day that she was turned down and said, no, we're not talking to Dolan? What happened to her?
At about the same time, she was assigned to a different project.
They moved her. They said, we can't have this. We can't have that. We can't be looking into the Clintons' buddy, a key source for the dossier. They reassigned her. And then what did she do?
She memorialized it.
She entered a memo to the file because she said, at some point the inspector general is going to want to know this information. I'm going to make it sure it's recorded contemporaneously. She put it in the file.
And that information is almost certainly going to be used during the conspiracy statute indictments.
It's crazy. They didn't talk to the key source. They kept key intelligence from the investigators. This is how bad this investigation was. But here's the scary part. I don't think anything has changed. The day your report came out.
So this was testimony from 2 years ago. Everything has changed in terms of what Jim Jordan is about to say right now because President Trump is president again and all of that. But let's continue.
5 weeks ago, May 15th, you got a letter, Mr. Durham, addressed to you from the General Counsel at the FBI, Mr. Jason Jones, writes you this 6-page letter, and he says, not to worry, everything is fine. It's all been worked out at the FBI. He even says on page 2, he says, had the reforms implemented by current FBI leadership, summarized below, been in place in 2016, failures detailed in your report never would have happened, and he underlines it. Said this would never happen because of the reforms we implemented in 2019 and 2020. And then he says on page 4, one of the specific reforms, he says, FBI executive management has instructed investigations should be run out of the field and not from the headquarters. That statement is not true. 5 weeks ago, the FBI wrote you and said.
So why was the investigation run by headquarters and not in the field? Well, the answer is obvious. So the people up top, Comey and others, could set up and frame Trump a lot easier without agents saying, hey, wait, there's no evidence here. We will finish this up with the following testimony. So this is Congresswoman Victoria Spartz, Indiana. She's fantastic. And this is a precursor to the indictments that that we'll all see very soon. Check this out. She's wonderful.
Mr. Dolan, I will quote excerpts from your report describing the FBI actions in Trump's case. You call them sobering, I call them alarming. Rapid opening, made no sense, no sound reason, no explanation, difficult to explain, no follow-up, uncorroborated evidence, unevaluated information, rumors and speculations, thin intelligence, exculpatory statements were not included, misrepresentation of the recorded conversation, noticeable departure, not using typical tools, serious lack of rigor, choose to ignore red flags, unwarranted delay, ignore nearly all recommendations, didn't disclose intelligence, not inform of inconsistencies, did not give appropriate attention to facts, did not adequately examine, did not receive satisfactory explanation, was not informed, never corrected assertion, never advised, never been apprised, never gave appropriate consideration, no further action, failed to make known, failed to act, failed to follow logical leads, failed to interview, failed to revise the paperwork, failed to take even the basic steps, failed to determine, failed to provide, failed to integrate, failed to fully exploit the materials, failed to critically analyze information, failed to properly consider, failed to correct errors, ignored contrary evidence, was never brought to the attention, intentionally falsifying material documents, fabricated the allegation, omission of material fact, numerous significant defects, 17 material errors and omissions, inaccurate representation, deliberately shut down, told not to write and provide findings orally, incorrectly noted, missed another opportunity, omitted email, omitted information, did not corroborate, never sought to obtain records, resisted efforts, conflicting recollection, troubling failure of recollection, not in a single FBI employee, curious change in assessment, key players declined to be interviewed, lacked sufficient probable cause, frustration on the part of investigators, sense of betrayal, highly unusual instruction, director was really shocking, and the list goes on. Dolan, with extensive connection to the Democrat Party and access to senior Russian officials and Putin's think tank, was never interviewed, request was denied, case was never opened, Auden instructing to cease all research and analysis related to Dolan. Leadership directed to dedicate no resources to Dolan. FBI interviewed hundreds of individuals, yet they did not interview Dolan. Danchenko failed to properly consider prior Russian counter-espionage case. FBI's validation unit raised serious concern. Management ignored and resisted nearly all recommendations and supported continued payment to him. Jonathan Weiner, special envoy to Secretary Kerry to Libya, who worked as lobbyist for Russian oligarch Deripaska with ties to Putin, disseminated still dossier to the U.S. official and destroyed his records. Deripaska was allowed to buy, control, and package in uranium company with extensive mining projects in the United States, approved by Secretary Clinton's State Department in 2010. The former head of the FBI's counterintelligence division in New York, McGonigal, involved with this case, recently was accused of taking money from Deripaska. Clinton case from your report stands in stark contrast. Lack of action, considerable caution, never open inquiry, in limbo, linger, defensive briefing, corroborating information, no effort to investigate cease and desist due to the undisclosed concern, decline to issue subpoenas. You're concerned with FBI's reputational harm. But it appears to me, using Director's Clapper's lexicon, this case has all classic earmarks of collusion and cover-up. However, not one person went to jail, and Clinton campaign operatives like Jake Sullivan now have the highest national security position in our government, who's actually driving a very slow response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this Congresswoman. You can replay it right here or on Forbes breaking news, but you can. This is a brilliant breakdown and synthesis and summarization of the conspiracy statutes. Everything they did was through bureaucracy, but they manipulated bureaucracy to defraud the United States. To defraud and deceive the people of the United States of America. They deceived the electorate. Brennan, Comey, Clinton, everybody involved, Clapper, they worked to deceive the American public. That is against the law. Okay? I wrote about that in the Federalist. You can type in H.A. Goodman and the Federalist, or you can read my writing on hagoodman.com. But Congresswoman Spartz is 100% right. And what she summarized was the basis of the upcoming indictment for Clinton and others. Hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. Go to H.A. Goodman's other channel. We're building that channel. right now and subscribe there and share the latest segment. I'll be back tonight at around 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Eastern for the next live stream. God bless you all. God bless America.